Welcome to Movie Versus.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is a Flarkin.
Shazam! Zachary Levi told us not to do it, so we had to. This is Shazam versus Captain Marvel.
AKA Captain Marvel versus Captain Marvel. We know the two films aren't that similar, but since they were both named Captain Marvel at one point or another, we just had to do it. So let's recap.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel is a story about
14-year-old Billy Batson, who's moving from foster home to foster home, who's given the power to turn into an adult superhero. While at first using his powers for fun and mischief, he must learn his full potential quickly in order to stop an evil doctor inhabited by the 7 deadly sins.
Captain Marvel is about a Kree warrior who has forgotten her past. But figuring out where she comes from becomes more and more important as she fights in a war that she believes in less and less the more she knows.
So, let's give our first impressions of both movies. Let's start with Captain Marvel.
Which one?
The female one.
Ah, yes. I was just a little bit underwhelmed by Captain Marvel, whereas with Shazam, I had a smile the entire time.
Overall, Shazam was just a really fun movie. It was full of compelling emotions and funny moments, and it did a really good job on delivering on the promise of having a departure from the really dark DCEU movies that we're used to. Zack Snyder. Had a little cough there.
You're emotionally invested, you'll laugh, you'll cry. Captain Marvel was not a bad movie, but it wasn't great either. There was just so much more room for it to be better, especially in the humor. There were so many missed opportunities for jokes. One of the gags is Nick Fury almost losing his eye. They pull her legs like twice.
They pull her legs once, and the second time he does lose his eye. You gotta do the rule of threes.
Marvel just needed to make this movie to solve their problems in Endgame.
She's the backup in case Ant-Man going up Thanos' butt doesn't work out.
And then you have Shazam, which is essentially a standalone film. It definitely doesn't have the same pressure that Captain Marvel has to drive forward the superhero universe.
Shazam did a good job of existing within the DC universe while not really doing anything to the main storyline of it.
Captain Marvel is Marvel's first female superhero movie, and it feels nice that Carol Danvers isn't treated any differently than any other male superhero, but at the same time, I kind of wish that she was a little bit more feminine. I think we can have superhero movies where a girl is a girl, and that's not a problem, kind of like how Wonder Woman did it.
Carol doesn't really have that much of a personality. She's just kind of snarky. We have a vague sense of who she was before she lost her memory, and I guess a vague sense of who she is now.
Noble warrior heroes.
There's just not that much of an arc from her at all. You don't grow by remembering things.
Yeah, she just remembered her story arc and was like, well, I can do it again. Unlike Carol, Billy Batson actually matures and changes throughout the movie. He starts Shazam as any 14-year-old. He's immature, kind of rude, and he's really naive. And it's really fun to see those traits even come through when he's Zachary Levi-sized. There's even more substance given to his character with his backstory. He is a foster child tossed around from home to home. He doesn't trust anyone and he doesn't let himself get close to anyone. He's self-reliant to a fault.
Of course, Billy doesn't just change overnight. He experiences his fair share of growing pains. But at the end of the day, he's really able to step up and finally depend on that family that's there for him. Billy Batson and the antagonist played by Mark Strong are actually set up to have really similar arcs in the beginning, but their outcomes differ in the decisions they make and the families they're given. I feel like the villain of Shazam is actually justified in his origins. Can you imagine being told as a kid that you're just not good enough by this cool wizard and by your dad and by your brother?
Wizards tell me I'm not good enough all the time.
While I feel like that's a really good origin or justification for his behavior, it only works at the beginning.
Yeah, once he's gotten revenge on his father, you kind of don't really know where his character's going. And you have no idea what is going to happen if and when he takes Shazam's powers. He's talking about like that's his goal, but we don't know why we should be scared of that.
There's no impending sense of doom. We haven't seen any chaos.
He knocked over a Ferris wheel with some bullies on it though. Yeah, danger. It also had some really strong special effects. Obviously, Warner Bros. Is very experienced with doing magic.
You're a wizard, Harry.
One thing that bugged me was that the 7 deadly sins, they were really poorly personified. I could never really tell which one was which, both in look and in persona. They didn't really ever do anything that kind of matched the sin that they were supposed to be.
They were just like brown and gray and kind of blobby.
It was also weird, but when the sins talked, their mouths didn't move.
Yeah, that was weird. The villains in Captain Marvel weren't that great either. Who is the Supreme Intelligence? What's their deal? I'm sure we'll learn about it later, but we didn't learn anything about it in Captain Marvel.
Spoilers, it's a big blobby boy.
Why is there a war going on between the Kree and the Skrulls?
Also, Jude Law isn't that great of a villain. Obviously, he flip-flopped from being a good guy to a bad guy, at least in our view of him. But even when he's a bad guy, there's nothing really to be afraid of, and he has no real justification other than his allegiances to the Kree, which draws back to the question of why the Kree and the Skrulls are fighting. I'm sure there is some in-universe or in-comic book explanation for that, but they didn't do a good job of conveying that in the movie.
And the Skrulls, who we initially think are bad, actually end up being some of the most fun characters in the film.
And they inject some humor and some good old-fashioned family ties.
I feel like the side characters in Captain Marvel are one of the stronger points of the film.
You got a de-aged Nick Fury with some incredible CGI and makeup. I bought it and then was never bothered by that throughout the movie.
Maria and her daughter are great best friends to Carol Danvers, and with them we were able to pass the Bechdel test. I feel like Shazam has a leg up on its side characters too. I just loved the chemistry between Freddie and Billy.
Overall, it was a very colorful cast of characters who all had their own unique personas, and they all interacted in a way that seemed very realistic and really grounded in their emotions. A lot of the times you see a movie about kids and the kids talk like adults or like they've never learned English.
Oops, this is not good.
So, Emily, what would you rate Captain Carol, Avengers, Danvers, Marvel?
I would give it a 6.5.
I would give it either a 7 or a 7.5. There were moments where I was like, oh, I wish they had done this, but there was never a moment that was particularly bad. And if I wasn't used to so many good superhero movies, I would probably be like, oh, that was good. Shazam, on the other hand, wasn't trying to be those other superhero movies.
You know what I think got me about Shazam? I think as kids we all wanted to kind of be superheroes. And it was so fun to be able to watch Billy Batson live that out. 8.5 out of 10 for Shazam.
Same.
As always, thank you for watching.
Good night.
Good day.
Shazam!